Before we get started, this episode is brought to you by Strive5, Ottawa's premier direct-to-client fitness and wellness company. My name is Jake Karam, founder of Strive5. After 20 years in the fitness industry, I created Strive5 to bring a deeper, more personalized approach to wellness, one that meets you where you are. Our direct-to-client model means we train in your space, on your time, with a focus on lasting transformation, not just workouts. We integrate 5 core pillars: strength, recovery, nutrition, mobility, and biomarkers to support full spectrum performance and longevity. What sets us apart is our commitment to real relationships, measurable results, and personalized strategies built from science, lifestyle metrics, and experience. At Strive5, it's more than fitness. It's about helping you become the strongest, healthiest, and most resilient version of yourself. To learn more, visit strive5corp.com or follow at Strive5 Wellness on Instagram and YouTube. And now, let's dive into the episode.
All right, partner, you ready?
Ready to go.
All right, man. All right, Jake, Resonate, Strive5. We
Awesome.
are back again. Next episode of the podcast here. I got to tell you, last night I got excited about the topics that we were going to be chatting about here because it's more real life stuff. You know, I think a lot of times with this health and wellness journey that a lot of people are on, they get caught up in the, biomarkers and blood tests and how am I supposed to eat and how am I supposed to sleep. And I think that it really takes away from the fact that we're all humans.
Yeah.
And we live everyday lives. And, there are key components of our lives that we are already aware of, and specifically we'll kick it off with consistency.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like the key to health and wellness, I think for those of us who have got it figured out and are on this journey, we realize that, consistency is more important than perfection, right?
Yeah.
None of us are perfect. I'm getting older, you're getting older. We've got people on this journey with us that are 60, 70 pounds overweight. We've got people on this journey that are, getting into the later stages of life. But regardless of where we're at, it's all about just showing up every single day.
Yeah. It's the small incremental changes. It's not it's not something that you can it happens overnight. It's something that takes small little steps each week, each day, each hour. And it doesn't have to be a massive accomplishment. It has to be small little things that you can set, like little minor goals or little things that you want to achieve. And then you can continue off those things throughout the day, throughout the week, and throughout the month. And then they add up over time. So it's a long-term goal that you're setting, not just a short-term kind of fix.
Well, and I know I used to be guilty of it as well. When I was, in my 20s, and let's say, I went to the beach in the morning, spent some time in the sun, was maybe a little bit dehydrated, was tired, I'm like, okay, well, the workout isn't going to be perfect, so I'm not going to go at all. Well, in fact, take a little bit of time, Dave, rehydrate, go an hour and a half later and just get the workout done.
Yeah, exactly.
It was the idea of just, you're going to be better for having gone rather than skipping, what I'm saying? So, in your experiences, have you always just been good at the consistency part of it, or how did it go for you?
You know what? Like I learned, not early on, it took some time, but I realized like when my day was more full, whether it was, it doesn't have to be just a workout. Like if you're spending your time setting these goals or you're accomplishing things throughout the day that you want to accomplish, then that feels much better at the end of the day than sitting on the couch and watching TV or playing video games all day long,
right?
Or just being, lazy, like sitting out and not doing anything. Even if you're working in the garden all day long, that feels like you're accomplishing something more so than not doing that. So I learned that doing the hard things and filling my day with things that are going to fulfill me, and setting those small goals then leads me more to understanding, what do I get out of it, and wanting more of it later on down the week or down the road. And so, yeah, I think it took some time, but when you fill your time up with stuff that's self-fulfilling,
yep,
and you understand what those things are and how it affects your mood and your day, then those things add up.
The effect of mood and day and just showing up, I can be having a terrible day. And sometimes all it takes for me to do is just walk in the gym and smell the rubber mats. And be like, oh,
yeah.
The hardest part was just getting there.
Oh, yeah.
And then,
Yeah.
once you're there, you get through the workout. Now you've got the endorphins, you've got that natural high that you get from it. And just showing up can take a terrible day and turn it into an awesome day.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. A lot of people I talk to, like if their day starts off poorly or they're in a low mood, and then we get a workout in afterwards, or we, even just go for a walk or a run or something, move a little bit. And it's amazing what it does for your mood levels, like even anxiety and depression. It really helps a lot to just move, shut your brain off. It also is a distraction. It distracts you from what you're worrying about necessarily, that day or whatever you're thinking about in the future. And just the movement alone, it blocks the mind from thinking about other things, and you have to focus on that one thing for that day. And it really helps with mood and energy levels, I find, long term.
I saw a video this week, and it was a young lady, probably in her 20s or 30s, admitting that she was just well overweight, and honestly just breaking down crying. She was out on a walk when she was doing this. But there was one thing that she said in the video that really resonated with me, was that she goes, I'm stuck. I'm trying to do this interval workout where it was, a minute of jogging, 3 minutes of rest, a minute of jogging, 3 minutes of rest. And she goes, I can't even run for a minute yet. Right. I don't even think that she recognized it. But, when I hear an individual say that, I'm like, all right, she's got it. She knows that she can't do it yet. But it will come. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. I get that a lot too. People say I'm not a runner, like I'm not a runner, so I don't want to run. But, you're not a runner because you're not running. Run a little bit every time, more and more, a little bit at a time. It doesn't have to be a massive thing. This goes back to setting goals and stuff. It doesn't have to be you're running 5 kilometers to be a runner.
Right.
You run for 2 minutes, then walk a little bit, then run for 2 minutes more. And then guess what? Over weeks and months, you are a runner.
Yeah. There is a line that I say to individuals, when they come to me and they're like, man, how do I get better at how do I get better at bench, or how do I improve my cardio, or how do I get more flexible?
Yeah.
It's like, you want to get better at bench press, do bench press.
Exactly.
You want to get better at running, do more running.
Yeah.
Right? Like there isn't some supplemental piece.
Or I've never been very flexible, for example, okay, well, stretch.
Go stretch.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It honestly is just that simple. And, I think when you can figure out what those things are that you want to go after, you may not have it yet. The next component that is sort of the motivation versus discipline. And I know that we've touched on this in previous episodes. You and I definitely subscribe to this. Motivation is fleeting.
Yeah.
But discipline is what is going to endure.
Yeah. Have you ever heard of Charles Poliquin?
Yes.
So I think he's a world-renowned trainer. He's passed away, but he had about 23, I think, Olympic athletes under his belt that he had trained. And he had a philosophy on discipline, and he called it the myth of discipline. Basically, that discipline is not something that you're born with, or you have this intent to train every day and it's just natural to you. It's more about what are you passionate about and what are your priorities. So if your priority is to get in shape or to feel better, you have to love that more than the way that you feel now. So it's about being passionate about things, and the discipline is not something that is a talent that someone's born with. It's more about setting priorities.
There's a couple things that I think about when I set a fitness goal for myself, or I see others who have set a fitness goal, and I'm like, oh man, they're going to be going after this for a while. And we've all heard this before, that the person that enjoys walking is going to journey further than the individual who's just looking for the destination.
It's the process, right?
It's if you can start to love the process, that's where you're going to see the success. And then I build on that as well. There's another thing that we waste a lot of time on social media, watching television, and a lot of times when I see people just sitting down and eating a bag of chips, right? The food is entertainment. The social media is entertainment.
Yeah,
the binge watching shows is entertainment. If we can learn to entertain ourselves with fitness, and that might be going to the gym and enjoying being with the people there, going for a run and feeling those endorphins afterwards, or learning how to cook and then enjoying the process of cooking.
Yeah.
Right. Now, all of a sudden, when that motivation fades, you have a framework of discipline in place to go, I love going to the gym. I'm going to go to the gym.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's about loving what you're doing and developing the passion for what you're doing. And if you don't do that, then it's like a diet. It's temporary and it's not going to work. So you have to develop a passion for the struggle and the pain and the sense of suffering through whatever you're going through right now, whether it's the workout or the meal prepping or whatever. You have to kind of learn to accept that it's not fun right away. Develop a passion for the stuff that you're not used to doing, and it'll get better over time.
So here's one thing that I've recognized too. I think that this idea of motivation versus discipline, people think that it only applies to health and fitness. But I look around at some very successful entrepreneurs, like people in my regular business life that I interface with. They're not fit. They're not healthy. In fact, I think they're the perfect model of people that you're trying to help and, that I'm trying to spread the message of health and wellness with. But I look at them and I go, these guys have persevered through challenging economic times. They've started several businesses, all of which are profitable. And I look at how these guys woke up early every morning. When the weather was bad, they got in the truck, they drove to the mill or the plant or whatever it was, and they just ground it out. So, it's almost hard for me to believe that individuals like this have the discipline inside of them. They just haven't made the commitment to apply that to their overall well-being.
Yeah. Yeah. Or they lack the, kind of the direction. Sometimes they just need to, in terms of where they're going to go next with that. They're extremely disciplined people, but it's just a direction where to go. Like how do you start from scratch in terms of what to eat or how to work out? So it's just guiding them kind of in that direction. And then once they learn, the ins and outs of that, then it's easier for them to stay consistent and disciplined with that program. But it's different with everyone. Every person you deal with has a different perspective. So it's coaching discipline. It's coaching, what's your passion, what's your priority, and then it's watching people grow from that, and then they grow the passion themselves and continue to grow from that perspective.
In your industry, have you noticed any trends of a particular demographic of people that do well once they've committed to their fitness journey? So for example, we'll go back to that idea of the entrepreneur, the person who has the discipline and they've exercised it in a different part of their life. Do you find that they come in and they're better suited to get comfortable with being uncomfortable because they've done it in other aspects of their life?
I think that happens in the later half of your life. So when you're younger, typically people don't focus on what they're going to lose, right? They're just partying or, they're going out on the weekends. Their health is taken for granted because they're not going to lose anything at the moment. They feel like they're going to live forever. When you get later stages in life, you start to realize, okay, these things I am going to lose. I am coming to a point where I don't feel the same I did when I was 20 and things are not going to last. So I have to set my priorities straight with, okay, maybe I should be more on top of doing this exercise program, or they just pay more attention to things. And I feel like the later stages of life, you do everything you can to try to make sure you're taking care of your health.
Yes.
The first half, you're doing everything you can to try to kill yourself. You know what I mean? So yeah, I would say the later part, people tend to stick better to it because they realize that time is not, limitless.
I like mountain biking.
Yeah.
And when I get out on the trails now, particularly downhill, I love downhill. But when I'm taking chairlift laps, I really have to ask myself, like, risk versus reward.
Yeah.
Okay, it's Saturday morning and I'm weekend warrior. I want to get out there and have a great time. And it's like, man, if I go over the bars here and I hurt myself, like, I got to go to work on Monday. I still have to get my kids to soccer. 20 years ago, it was a no-brainer, right? You just all gas, no brakes, let her rip. But I hear it happening with professional auto racers. They get to this point in their career where they lose their fearlessness.
They almost hesitate a little bit.
They hesitate and they lose that edge. But I think that comes with wisdom as well.
Oh, for sure.
So the goal now for me is to be able, so let's say we're doing a heavy deadlift day. I would love to still be hitting PRs, right? I would love to. But, let's say I'm putting up 275 for sets of 5. Okay. Like that's a pretty good number.
Yeah.
I look around at guys in my cohort. Not a whole lot of them are doing that. do I need to push it, and do I need to do 305 or 325 or 375?
Yeah,
Like,
that's an individual question. It's different for everybody. That's something that some people feel like those are their small goals they want to achieve. That's the strength training aspect, and that's commendable. I mean, the strength that you keep, the longer that you keep it, is better for you. That's science. That's the way it is. But do you need to be lifting super heavy weights the older that you get to sustain that strength and the muscle tone and mass? Probably not.
Right.
You can do it with 275.
And limit the risk of injury, because if I pull something, like I can't show up the next day, and that's like that.
If you're responsible for other people, and you can't just show up the next day and get back to it. So you have to be more self-aware about that. But that's what I try to teach the younger people that I'm with too, is the earlier you're more self-aware, the better, because then you have an appreciation for doing the things now rather than doing them in 20 years, because they are going to get lost. So your health is either a priority now or it's a priority when you need it to be. So make it a priority earlier on, and then that way it's better dealt with later on down the road, and then less likelihood of you having disease and injury and not feeling well.
And this is probably a good transition into our next topic here, but when we're thinking about how we've matured and we've developed and how we're going to treat our bodies well, I would say that it's a mindset shift that's really happened. And I noticed it when I had kids, right? It went from being, obviously I was married and, but then it went like, oh, okay. Like now there are people that are relying on me.
You're not the most important person anymore.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So I think when we can shift our mindset and we figure out that mindset matters more than any workout plan, right? Like you're going to go through cycles in different workout plans. It's going to be strength. It's going to be cardio based. It's going to be, you're going to go through these different plans. But if you can just apply that consistent, disciplined mindset, that is more important than any workout plan. If you're working with a trainer, you download something online, but come to all of it with the right mindset.
Yeah, like how you approach and try to approach everything that way, and not just when you're in the gym. If you approach with the same mindset for what you're going to eat that day or what you're going to eat that week, or how you're going to practice going to bed earlier, it's that mindset that will set you apart and will set you forward, rather than just focusing on one specific aspect of that. So yeah, mindset is everything. It's learning to enjoy the process and the struggle and the discomfort that you haven't been used to for so long.
So here's a hard one. Any strategies to help people improve mindset? The cognitive aspect is the hardest part, right? Like if the mind is, what was it? There was a saying where it's like, we treat the body rigorously so that the mind doesn't disobey.
Yeah.
Right. So, in your line of work, do you have any suggestions or tips to help people improve their mindset?
Yeah. Don't compare yourself to what everyone else is doing. And it's that old Nike slogan, just do it. Less thinking sometimes, and just getting up, set an alarm, stay on schedule every day, no exceptions. Keep promises that you make to yourself more than anybody else, because you're the most important person to keep accountable. So keep those promises that you're keeping to yourself and don't break them. And then that self-respect from those disciplines will grow into creating better mindset long-term down the road. And stick to that schedule every day, no exception. And those are good tricks that I've found long-term with clients. It helps a lot.
In the mindset shift, I read something the other day, and it was along the lines of, eventually the self-control becomes the reward.
Yeah.
So if you're looking at it as, if you're struggling with diet, you eat poorly, your mind sees eating the treat, like you get a dopamine hit.
Yeah.
And the individual, you feel good for a very brief period of time.
Yeah.
But when you shift your mindset and some time has passed and your brain starts to rewire itself and go, ooh, okay, these things aren't good for me. And then you go out for dinner and you decline the dessert.
Yeah.
That is very satisfying.
Yeah.
And that lasts, right?
Yeah.
Like you're going to feel good about it in the moment, and then you're going to wake up tomorrow morning and you're still going to feel good that you made the right decision.
Yeah, exactly. And some people, you know, like a lot of people that I talk to too, and myself included, having the dessert is also okay. You know, it's just a matter of what your priorities are and where you want to take things from that perspective. But it's just setting goals for yourself and sticking to them. You know, if you want to have a dessert after you have a meal, go ahead. But make sure that you're doing all the other stuff that you promised you're going to do for yourself as well. That way you can live a long, healthy, happy life. Balanced, exactly.
Yeah, that's fair. So what are your thoughts on people in their early stages of their fitness journey who maybe haven't had the complete mindset shift, who want to try and introduce something like a cheat day?
Yeah,
I struggle with that.
I'm not a
bit.
big fan of cheat days.
Yeah, me neither.
Yeah, I think it creates, it sets you up for failure, and you're depriving yourself, so-called depriving yourself of things that you want now so that you can have them later on. And that typically doesn't last long, right? They usually fail. It's like a diet plan or anything else. Eat things that you want to eat on a relatively realistic, healthy basis. Moderation. And don't create a day of the week where you binge or you're going to make yourself sick or, you know, so throughout the day, eat healthy, eat the right things that you're supposed to be eating, and then, you know, enjoy those things, other things as well, but make sure that you're eating the food for the right reason. Like food is fuel, right? We're eating it for a specific reason. When we forgot that food is fuel for the body. So if you're just going to consume and you're not going to burn any of it, or you're not going to move the way the body's supposed to, then you have to rethink things.
You know, the body is an amazing thing, and it is capable of far more than we think that it is.
Yeah.
You know, and I go back to this young woman that I mentioned earlier here in the episode, where she wasn't where she wanted to be yet. And I also got thinking, you know, we shout out to Kenny Spracklin.
Yeah.
We were chatting about him the other day. He had posted a picture with Nims Persia, the gentleman who did 14 Peaks. And there's a part in that movie, I think, where Nims says something along the lines of like, even when you think you're absolutely screwed, you're really only about 40% screwed.
Yeah, I love that.
And I think the message he's trying to get across there is that you're capable of far more than you believe you actually are.
Absolutely. Yeah. There's so much potential in people that gets unseen. And the only way to find that is to push through further than you think you can. And that's when the beauty comes, because then you start to see what you're capable of, and you become more proud of what your accomplishments are. And so getting them to the point where they can push themselves enough to see, well, that helps too when I'm with them sometimes, or when my guys are with them. If you push them a little further than they even want to go, or if they're pushing back a little bit sometimes, then they get through it and they're like, okay, I did do that. Oh my God, I can do this. That's all it takes. And then that lights a spark, and then they realize, okay, I'm going to keep pushing a little bit more each time. And I can do way more than I even thought I could, because I've never done it before.
That's right. Yeah. You know, I saw a video the other day that was just absolutely heartwarming, and it was a geriatric. Like, this was an old individual, and it was at their grandkid's birthday party, and they were they were lean, probably underweight, I would say. So clearly nutrition was being, you know, not a priority, and no strength, couldn't get out of a chair. And, you know, the reel went on to show them on this fitness journey, and then it was something like 6 or 8 months later where they went from not being able to get out of a chair to going on jogs with their spouse, who was an older guy, couldn't get out of the chair. And then 8 months later, he was out on a jog with his wife.
Yeah, that's amazing.
You know, so it doesn't matter where you are at in life.
Yeah, it doesn't matter when you start.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah,
right?
There's so much stuff coming out now, science more about, you know, starting even in your 80s or 90s, you can still get stronger, improve your health, put on muscle tone. Everything can improve. It's never too late. You know, saying I'm old is just an excuse.
Yeah.
It's never too late.
You know, I remember having a conversation with my dad about my grandpa, and my dad said, you know, when your grandpa turned 30 years old, he made a conscious decision to be an old man.
Yes,
and
exactly.
Going back to the example we were just chatting about there, about this older gentleman who in his 80s was able to improve from not being able to get out of a chair to getting out of a chair. Let's celebrate those victories, no matter how small it is. Like on this guy's journey, the first time he was able to get up out of that chair again after probably 10 years of not having been able to do it, I think it's important that we celebrate the small victories.
Yeah.
And, I mean,
That's the key
find?
to the motivation too behind it, is celebrating the small victories. Don't create large goals unnecessarily right away. Celebrate every single win, and that will add up over time. Celebrate every single accomplishment, no matter how small it is. And those little wins rewires your brain too to feel like, okay, this feels good every time. And the more you do that, the easier it'll get, and the more you'll want to, you'll want that feeling again. So the small stuff, baby steps.
You know what I find is super rewarding is when you have somebody to celebrate these small victories with. So whether it be your gym family or a trainer or your spouse or, your kids are watching you improve, but having the ability to celebrate with other people, like it is, I don't want to use the term motivation, but boy, it lights a fire underneath you.
Yeah, because we thrive off seeing each other do well. Most people do anyways. And we feed off each other's energy. A lot of it is energy. You're just feeding off of that feeling you're getting from accomplishing things that you thought you couldn't. And that's the beauty of community and helping each other, is you get a lot out of it, more than you realize you will get.
I think one of the themes that we keep chatting about here, and this is probably a good way to end us off on this episode here, is that community is so huge. I love what you're doing with Strive5. I hope that this Resonate podcast gets out there to help people.
That's the goal.
That's the goal, man.
We want people to hear, our stories, see people that we're helping, and hear about the impact that it's having. And it's all about the community and the impact that we have on each other, because we are social creatures, and you will get the most out of helping people than anything else.
All right, Jake.
Awesome.
Good job,
It's
man.
been a good episode.
We'll catch you on the next one.
See ya.